Welcome to the Gamers Among Us channel. I am your host today, the Still Grizzly. Often we see new games coming out that focus on multiplayer aspects, or a grand MMO campaign, and we leave behind that impressive single-player campaign of old. While multiplayer is a great way to enjoy a game with friends, like the recent Call of Duty Black Ops 4, which was a fun multiplayer game, but it cut out the single-player aspect in favor for a battle royale game, we are then left with some pretty awesome games being left behind due to either no competitive intentions or losing that single-player focus. Not all games have changed from that aspect though, as there are still some great real-time strategy games that have come out recently that push the focus towards the single-player dynamic, like Frostpunk or They Are Billions. However, we are placed here wondering what happened to those glorious campaigns where we could raise not only a city, but an army to defeat your enemies. We are going to look into some real-time strategy games that were neglected. What does neglected mean for us? Well, that means a game that may have several games in the series, but something happened to cause the game to sit at the side, then gather some cobwebs. Think of a game that their company may have been bought out. Something wasn't just right with the game, then it fell to the side, or it just came out at the wrong time, causing the general public to overlook that game. We want to celebrate those old games and maybe have some notice on them that they can get that attention they deserve. Today, we're going to investigate 5 real-time strategy games that we felt have lost that attention and need to be back into the limelight, either by getting a remaster, reboot, or a sequel with more modern graphics. Of course, we don't want to lose that old gameplay mechanic, but hopefully see some surprises along the way. Company of Heroes is our first game on the list. This game was one that didn't shy away from the horrors of World War II. It introduced new mechanics in the RTS genre that has since branched out into other games like the Dawn of War series, which was made by the same team, Relic. What made this game amazing was the inclusion of this historical aspect while controlling several units to attack the enemy. Company of Heroes came out in 2006, made by Relic Entertainment and published by THQ. This game was set in World War II with 2 playable factions. Your main objective was to capture strategic resource sectors located around the map, which you would then do by building base structures, produce new units, and defeat enemies along the way. You could command 2 US military units during the Battle of Normandy and the Allied liberation of France. Depending on the mission, you would be placed over Able Company of the 29th Infantry Division's 116th Infantry, or Fox Company of the 101st Airborne Division's 506th PIR, or Parachute Infantry Regiment. This game had a ton of accolades, even a Company of Heroes 2, which was centered more on the Eastern Front, allowing you to control the Soviet Red Army. Why is this game neglected if it got a sequel and a ton of accolades? It started more with the publisher THQ going out of business. This caused the game to be then in that horrible limbo. Thankfully, Sega, who has produced the hugely popular Total War series, ended up picking up the failing second game of this series, and it did see the light of day on June 25th, 2013. It has been over 6 years though, with no word of a Company of Heroes 3 or a reboot of the franchise. Seems this game relied on some really awesome mechanics that you captured sectors to then produce resources, instead of including say additional workers to just mine or farm wood. It gave you a sort of relief from that normal RTS mechanic. As you could tell, Relic was not concerned about how many crystals were farmed, but how quickly the battles moved. This also allowed the game to be more rushed, like you were with the troops on the ground moving from bunker to bunker, or finding new hidden tanks to shoot at you along the way. Each squad made up of several units, and each squad could upgrade, for example by picking up a bar. This mechanic stayed the same in the second game, but also included activated support actions. Plus, the ability to control your units alongside your vehicles, which included tanks and small vehicles, made this game a ton of fun. The audio really immersed you into the world, meaning the sounds the gunfights would make, your units calling out to each other during the midst of a fight, and the musical score. Plus, the ability to place your units behind cover, which was not a new idea, though greatly used at first, with this game, then the sequel, and to then watch your units physically cover while the destructible environment around them blew up was an amazing experience. We're definitely sad to see no further news about this game series. It did have issues with the second game being delayed. 2006 to 2013 is a long time to wait for a sequel, though there have been speculations of a company of heroes set more in the World War I era. Personally, I would love to see that with the same tactics, and since cover was so important for these games to be heavily used in trenches. Even if that doesn't come about, hopefully we hear some news that this game has some hope and isn't neglected. Moving from the grand conflict of World War II, we have the next war that never happened. World in Conflict is set during World War III. A Soviet-led army has launched a surprise attack on the USA. Massive Entertainment's World in Conflict is a speculative military fiction, as at the time of this video, World War III hasn't happened yet. What made World in Conflict great, in my opinion, was that it was a fun strategy game that incorporated a beautiful backdrop, from the winterlands in Russia to invaded American towns. At its time, this game was the pinnacle of cutting-edge visuals, where you can call in off-map assets like heavy artillery, strafing runs, new units, and other support assets. This helps to make a crazy battle scene, as you have your units moving in to attack with planes flying overhead bombing the enemy while explosions go off, causing the entire map to have a different landscape after the battle is over. One aspect I love about this game was you could see from any angle. It was glorious. It did push against the limits of PCs when it came out in 2007, but it was so worth it to see that destruction. During a game, you're given a predetermined amount of reinforcement points to purchase those extra units. Once you deploy, you have 20 seconds to twiddle your thumbs to wait on the units to be airdropped in. If you're worried about not having enough units, well, when you die or the unit is destroyed, your points come back to you, allowing you to reinforce again. This definitely helps out in those heated conflicts to push you forward with units airdropping in behind. Of course, when you play the single player story, you're limited to what you can and can't deploy as you learn units and see whether they are useful to the story or not. I mean, they don't want you playing the American side and deploying Soviet units. Well, when you do deploy units, you have to be mindful of being countered. So don't let the enemy mobile anti-air guns take out those reinforcing helicopters. It all balances out and allows you to have a pretty fast-paced battle. Plus, they also incorporated specific abilities. For example, some units have the ability to deploy a smoke screen, while others have one that allows you to call in those off-air bombardments. Overall, you're looking at some pretty awesome and grandiose battle scenes while you venture through this game. In what can be seen as an obvious pull from the film Red Dawn, obviously the 1984 film, not the recent one, we have those major baddies, the Soviets coming in wrecking everyone. This game did get the Soviet Assault expansion, which allowed you to focus away from the American units and more on the Soviet units as they prepared for the reality of war. After that though, this game succumbed to what happens pretty often in the video gaming industry, a buyout. The publisher Vivendi Games went under, and in 2009, Massive Entertainment was bought by Ubisoft. This is important because they stopped making this game and instead moved to other projects like Anno 2070, Tom Clancy's The Division, Assassin's Creed Revelations, and Far Cry 3. This meant they never had the chance to expand more into this alternate history idea and unique gameplay mechanics. I, for one, am super sad that this game never got a reboot, sequel, or anything like that, as it was a superior game at the time. It is still playable on GOG if you would like to pick it up to play, and then beat it, and then feel sad, like me, that there is not another game coming out. Our next game that was left behind is the Empire Earth series. The first game was made over 18 years ago and quickly moved up the ranks to be an extremely popular real-time strategy game. At first glance, this game can be compared to Age of Empires with a similar move through the ages mechanics. However, Empire Earth went further than the Middle Ages, where Age of Empires stopped. They shot for the moon. Empire Earth was first released in 2001, developed by Stainless Steel Studios, and the RTS giant at the time, Sierra Entertainment, was the publishing company. This game immediately captured the attention of fans and critics, garnering many good reviews as the game sold over 2 million units, I know that's not a big number now, but was pretty big back in 2001. This game, like Age of Empires, had a multitude of nations you could play, up to 20 total nations with 14 epochs. In case you didn't know, epochs are eras in Empire Earth, like Stone Age, Dark Age, Imperial Age, and Space Age. You start out with 5 different campaigns in 5 different periods of time. The learning campaign, or tutorial focused on the initial gameplay mechanics to introduce the player with how to get good while playing as Phoenicia with their rise to power. The next campaign you focused on was the Greek campaign, with no reigns here. It let you loose to conquer the Mediterranean, several scenarios progressing through the Greek rise to the fall with the attack of the Persian Empire. Next, we see the English campaign, which is set during the Battle of Hastings era around 1066, allowing you to experience the 100 Years' War against the French. Then we have the German campaign, which focuses on World War I, moving through to World War II, and their fight they had with several allied countries. Last, they had the Russian campaign, which focused on the time 2018, with the Russian Federation being rebuilt, leading to a coup and attempted invasion in the USA. Weird, I don't remember that happening. These campaigns are what initially drew people in, those that were seeking the going beyond the Age of Empires set. Due to the success of the game, an expansion pack was quickly put out the next year, which brought new campaigns and features to the game, though not as highly reviewed due to several issues that never really got fixed. 2 years later, Empire Earth 2 came out with a slight twist. It was made by a different company, not Stainless Steel. The second game attempted to introduce weather effects with improved graphics, but just didn't hit the mark the first game did. It had an expansion pack as well, which added new civilizations, units, campaigns, and features. Sadly, it also did not live up to the hype of the first game, leaving fans wanting more and not really pushing for any new innovation. The last game in the series was Empire Earth 3, which came out in 2007. As you can guess, if you're following the trend, it didn't do so well. It didn't come out with much content, felt pushed out too soon, and only contained about 5 epochs. In addition, the game had a ton of bugs that never got fixed, which sealed the nail in the coffin for the series. As you can see, this game had super promising start and had a glorious campaign system, which was very detailed. There are petitions out there for the 4th Empire Earth to come out. However, not much news has come out about the game since 2008. And a very sad trend on this list. We see that once sold, the original team that had such love for the game was removed, and it never ends up the same. Hopefully, we'll see a Kickstarter, or some news showing interest again in the series, as I would love to move from the prehistoric age all the way to the space age again. A game company now well established in the real-time gaming industry called Petroglyph first started with this small game series which erupted onto the scene in 2006, named Star Wars Empire at War. Empire at War had 3 different game modes: the story-based campaign, Galactic Conquest, and skirmish battles. Would be fought either on the planet with typical land battles or above the planet with space battles. The land battles were fought with infantry and ground vehicle units, while the space battles were fought with spaceships. I know, seems pretty self-explanatory. The storyline campaign follows a semi-linear path where the player must complete sequential mission objectives like the Battle of Yavin or stealing X-Wing prototypes. The Galactic Conquest is a sandbox campaign, allowing it to be more open with the player controlling the Rebel Alliance or the Empire. Each faction has at least one of 3 objectives: to kill the enemy leader, Mon Mothma or Emperor Palpatine, protect or destroy the Death Star, or completely obliterate the other faction. You receive funds from plants you control, which contributes to your defense, building of troops and vehicles, and of course, researching technology. Also, each planet may contribute a small beneficial bonus towards your playthrough. For example, lowering the pricing of a specific unit by 25% or allowing for a quicker research. Then we have the final game mode, Skirmish, which is more familiar to the classic RTS mode. You can play either in space or on land. On land, you battle like a typical RTS, researching, upgrades, and capturing reinforcement points to move forward, while the space mode allows you to capture space stations to bolster your team. Overall, these game modes melded together and made this game great. After you've experienced all the campaigns, you can see how much lore is seeping through the sides, as you can play several famous heroes in that universe, like Darth Vader or Obi-Wan Kenobi. This game was very well received and said to give a true Star Wars experience. Most importantly, it was a true real-time strategy experience. This game did recently receive an update to be playable on Windows 10 with a slight HD update as well. It received a sequel called Star Wars Empire at War, Forces of Corruption. That sure is a mouthful. Which based on the same styling of game modes, but added a new feature of organized crime. You get to play a full-fledged campaign with the new syndicate, Sand Consortium, as a third faction in the series. You can conquer worlds by infiltrating them with bribing, sabotaging, or with straight piracy. This new expansion didn't leave the Rebels or Empire lacking, as it introduced new units while amping up some old ones. Plus, you also got new planets to conquest, or not conquest, with a new feature called non-conquest goals that allowed you to use those sneaky tools of corruption. Not much else has been heard about this fantastic sci-fi game. However, any news for a sequel or remake have already been handily shot down, as EA, who currently has the rights to these games, does not feel the need that there should be more in this series. Though I'm sure, as you are, that's straight bull honky. Our previous games on the list, we went through World War II, World War III in an alternate future, through the epochs, and then we have now gone far, far away. Who wouldn't want a continuation in this Star Wars world? There definitely seems to be plenty of new lore to push out a new game with all the new Star Wars movies that have been recently released. Last on our list is Rise of Nations, which was led by its predecessor Age of Empires, which is of course an amazing game and has since been mentioned already on this list, and also it's received a remaster to HD, which is why it did not make it to the top of the list or on this list at all, as it's obviously not been neglected. Similar to Age of Empires, which provided us with a chance to advance through centuries of military progress and 30-minute battles, Rise of Nations improved upon this feature. Plus, Rise of Nations incorporated elements like turn-based strategy likened to Civilization. Instead of collecting your units from a single base, you can build cities all over the map to increase your nation's borders. When your borders collide, that connects and improves your regions. Civilizations then race through the ages to try and outdo each other, which is a ton of fun to take out some longbowmen with tanks or machine gunners. Rise of Nations originally came out in 2014, developed by Big Huge Games and published by Microsoft Game Studios. This game had an expansion called Thrones and Patriots, and a spiritual successor called Rise of Legends, which used the same tactics as Rise of Nations, however, in a fantasy world, which even this game was a unique gem to play. What Rise of Nations did that was different at the time was, like I stated, it incorporated the melding of Age of Empires gameplay when doing a battle to a Risk tabletop experience like Civilization when moving on to the overworld. Another great feature was the territory idea, allowing settlements to expand with their borders pushing out. Once new expansions were built or tech researched on the tech tree, this feature also caused a new feature called Attrition, where over time the units would take damage till they destroyed that building, causing the border to expand, or they ended up dying. You can play up to 18 civilizations with 4 to 8 unique units to that specific society, while the expansion added several more civilizations to play with, like Persians or the Iroquois. My favorite feature of the game was the single-player campaign called Conquer the World. That was very similar to the board game Risk, where you zoomed in to fight battles. You could purchase reinforcements or bonus cards to help in those close-up battles, engage in diplomacy while outside of the battle, plus the campaign starts at the Ancient Age, moving over the course of the whole campaign to the Information Age, present day, or at that time, 2004. In addition to great units, which range from stealth bomber to hoplite to a giant battleship, you can also build wonders, which give various benefits in the game, like the Colossus, pyramids, or the space program, thus dabbling a little bit more, making it feel kind of like Civilization. Building these wonders allows you to have a different victory than just a all-out domination, but a wonder victory. which allows each wonder to be a preset amount of wonder points to give you that extra edge. This game was met with several favorable reviews, has had an HD remake, and still has a die-hard fan base. Sadly, the game, though doing well, never got a reboot or expansion beyond what it's already gotten. Since 2014, that was the last update for the game, and that was over 5 years ago, leaving many wondering if we would ever return to this glorious game. Thank you all for tuning in to our top 5 neglected real-time strategy games. Hopefully with time we will see a resurgence of more RTS games. I see games like They Are Billions, Age of Empires with that very recent remastered update, or even Command & Conquer receiving a new remaster for the first game, and Red Alert, which I am personally very excited for, and several other RTS games still hanging on in this battle royale, multiplayer heavy age we live in. I for one may be coming from a "I miss this when" thought, but I feel RTS still has a place in this world. I know StarCraft is a large and grandiose esports phenomenon, and that MOBA, which came from an RTS game, Warcraft 3, which wasn't mentioned on this list as it's also getting a remaster in the works as of 2019. What I mean is the old RTS, where you took time to build and enjoy the wonder of a campaign, or playing with a friend. What seems to be the issue is that RTS needs to evolve or die type situation, which is why the new They Are Billions, with floods of enemies coming in to attack, or Frostpunk's melding of RTS with city building and survival, or even Tooth and Tail, which incorporates forever moving your troops around mechanic while you have troops at home farming. In this fast-paced society, sadly RTS gets left behind, as most may not have the attention for a war of attrition versus a 360 no-scope quick jump. I for one still see versions of these games out there that haven't died, like the games we have mentioned. RTS isn't dead, it is evolving, and sadly that means some really good games have been left behind. Make sure you leave a like on the video, comment below if you'd like to see more RTS games featured, what games you thought we missed, or just what you miss about these awesome games. Also, if you'd like to help the channel out, make sure to click subscribe, then leave that bell icon on. That way you don't miss out on any gaming news, podcast, game reviews, or any new videos we push out. I would also like to point out, now we have a website that you can reach by going to gamersamongus.com. There you can see our articles and links to videos we have put out. We're still working on the site, but hope it will be something we can all enjoy. You can visit there or our Facebook, Twitter, Discord, Instagram, or Twitch if you'd like to reach us outside of YouTube. This is the Still Grizzly signing off, hoping you have good luck with all your future games.